Welcome everyone to the Finance-Auditing Committee of October 24th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you could have a roll call, please.
Director Dorsey is absent. Judah Chick.
Here.
Rosewell.
Here.
Hernandez. Absent. Austin.
Oh, here.
Rodoni.
Here.
Vice Chair Park. Here. Chair Rabbit.
Here.
And President Cochran.
There.
Thank you. You still have a quorum, and you are still the committee of the whole. We also have Directors Garbarino, Hill, Snyder, and Hiria.
Great. We'll move on to our first item, which is item 3, ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. We're going to strike item D from the recommendation, I believe, and I'm going to turn that over to Joe, though. Joe's going to strike it. And those are on pages 5 to 14. Any presentation, Joe? No. Any questions from the committee on the ratification of previous actions?
Nope.
Plus D. And is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this particular item?
Speakers on the side.
Great. If can I get a motion to ratify the previous actions?
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. And do we need to do roll call? We could do a voice vote.
We can do a voice vote.
We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously. All present.
Great.
4A, budget increase in the fiscal year 24-25 Ferry Division capital budget for project 2443. What we just heard of the Ferry Terminal West East berth ramps. Any questions?
I'll move the item.
We have a motion and
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this one?
No speakers on this item.
And again, with a voice vote on the budget increase for the ramp repairs or work in San Francisco. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously with all present. No actions for number 5 today, so we'll move on to number 6, which is approved establishment of a new capital project, 2515 ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, expansion and improvement, project scope and design. And Joe. Brown.
It's going to be me and Molly Brown, project manager for this project. Here she is. I will start it out as the project. I'm the project sponsor because it's replacing the financial system and the HR system. So Kelly worked with me a lot on it as the co-project sponsor. This project had its germination probably in 2015, 14, 15, and then we spent several years doing different types of studies and looking at it. It's a big deal to change your financial system. Actually, that's why you don't have your report from PFM, because they were bought by U.S. Bank, and U.S. Bank is changing their financial system, and your report is not here because they're changing their financial system. So things happen like that, but it'll be here next time, they said. And then in 2018, we put together a capital project. 2019, we were ready to go, and then the pandemic came. In 2022 is when you actually awarded a contract to start that, because it was not something the staff could do for a couple of years, and we didn't work on this thing. We knew we wanted to do it. So, and during that time, there was continued studies. We awarded a contract in 2022. Work began with a new vendor, Tyler. It was a different type of system for us to put in here at the district. Work began with staff. It was a detailed process. We got about 6-8 months through it. And, warning signs started to come up as it wasn't going to get us what we wanted to get. So, we paused the project, and the staff spent most of a year working with them and working with our other vendors because the system an ERP system, an enterprise-wide system has to put its fingers into all your other systems. It has to touch everything else. So we had to work with some of them to see how it might work and not work. Could it achieve what we want to do? In the end, the cost and the time and then the product we'd get at the end was not worth what we would be putting into it. So we didn't want to put any more money into something that wasn't going to do what we wanted it to do. So we stopped. And the contract has been terminated. It was terminated a while back. But we do need to fix our financial system. So, Molly's going to talk, as your project manager. She's done an absolutely fantastic job. This is like herding cats because, everybody's involved. Your system covers everything across the district. It touches really anything we do. So it's been a very difficult job. She's done a very good job. And it's even more difficult when you get your vendor and then your vendor doesn't come through. So as a project manager, that's not been easy. So I'm really proud of what you've been able to do for us. So what we're just going to do is talk a little bit more about the details about what happened, and then the new project. And that's what you're here. That's what we've brought in front of you. This is what we're going to start out. And it's going to be studying a new project. So turn it over to Molly.
Well, good morning. Thank you for listening to what I have to say about this project. So as Joe said, we hit some problems with this project kind of 9 months into it. And it's primarily with the interfaces and interfaces with two of our significant systems. That was our bus scheduling system, which is HASCUS, and our asset management system, which is Maximo. And we already have very sophisticated interfaces with those two systems with our legacy system, which is Finance Enterprise. So we had been very upfront with the vendor right through the procurement process that these were two very important interfaces for us, and they've given us assurances that they could do it. So we went in with good faith, and you know it didn't work out that way. Even though we had escalated internally, and Joe was involved in those escalations as well, you know they just didn't put the right attention to it. And when they did put the right attention to it, they then realized, oh, this is very difficult. This is not what we were expecting. So at that point, we paused the project and we did an in-depth analysis because we still wanted to make this work. The project team still wanted to make this work. We did an in-depth analysis with our other partner vendors. We did internal analysis on, you know, how can we make this work? We really wanted to make this work. And in the end, we just decided this wasn't going to work. And we could make it work, but it would be more expensive. It would be more screens that people would have to go through, and it would just be more cumbersome. And so with that, we decided that we should just cut our losses with Tyler. We sought permission from Dennis to do so. And then once we had done that, we then had to decide what the next steps were going to be. Because the status quo, we couldn't remain with the status quo. So what we decided that there were two options available to us. We could go back out to market again and go look for another vendor, or we could improve our legacy system. And that was the option that we decided to take, because if we went back out to market again, that's a very long process. It had already taken us this long to get to Tyler. And there was no guarantees that another vendor was actually going to meet our needs. And we were already working with Finance Enterprise, and yes, there are problems. But what we learned through the process of working with Tyler is that we understood our system much better and we understood our processes much better, because the team spent a lot of time together in workshops, you know, discussing their end-to-end processes. And that's really what was valuable in that. So even though we didn't go with Tyler, what was valuable was the discussions that were had of our processes, where the issues are, you know, not just in silos, but as a whole end-to-end process, where those issues were. And so we can take that knowledge, we can leverage that and put it into our current system, which is Finance Enterprise. You know, why do we think we're going to get it right now? Because I think staff really gained that better understanding of FE. You know, they're going in with a much more, a higher base of understanding of what their needs are. And they were forced to think about, you know, their cross-functional processes. And I think that's really going to help us get through this. I don't think the project failed because anyone was disorganized or, you know, we didn't work collaboratively. I just think that, you know, the Tyler solution just wasn't a good fit for the district. So with that, we want to start a new project. We want to run it as a project because it needs a defined scope. It needs a defined start and end date. And an agreed set of objectives. And that's outlined on page 4. By doing so, we'll ensure that, you know, staff will dedicate time to working on this, and it ensures that the progress and costs are tracked. To further ensure that the success of this, we want to do this in 2 phases. So we don't want to just start out not knowing how long this is going to take and how much it's going to cost. So we are proposing to do a phase 1 where we will actually define all the requirements, get the high-level scope set. On page 6, there's a table that shows what we will do. In that phase 1, we estimate it will take about 8 months to complete phase 1, and then we would come back to this committee with a detailed business case for phase 2, which will be the actual configuration, the testing, the training, and the implementation. The costs for this phase 1 is on page 7. It's the third table in the fiscal impact section. We're estimating 1.1 million just for this phase 1. With the old project closing, we're returning 2.5 million back to district treasury. So we're hoping we can offset the cost of phase 1 with the return of those funds. And with that, I will conclude my discussion and I'm open to any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. I'll turn it over to my colleagues if there's any questions to staff. Director Giudice.
Yeah, just a testimonial. Being in a jurisdiction that barely survived Tyler Munis, I am sympathetic to your problem, and in particular the interfaces were the issue. It wreaked havoc in our public works billing, wreaked havoc in our ability. The annual audit affected just so many different things, and we're just coming through the end of it. So sometimes you got to cut bait. You made a very wise decision.
Director Parr.
I was going to echo that. Having lived through trying to get an interface of all different departments and not being quite as careful. It was years and years ago, but it brings the district down. Congratulations to the whole team, and I see really credible names on the team here, but congratulations for being wise enough to say, let's just stop and start over. So good luck to you. Keep in touch with us.
Thank you.
You won't sleep at night for a long time, but that's okay.
Just an echo in the room. I echo what my colleagues said. Wonderful. Great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one comment that what Director Parr mentioned was, yes, your project is good hands. I won't be here, but she'll be here to do it. And it's in good hands, and it's a good team behind it. It is a very difficult sort of, we don't look at it. Those here in this room, we don't look at the system, but it's underneath, everything we do. And when things got bad, we were at the Irish American Club at a board meeting, and she called me up, and that was a tent out back. I remember that. I spent like an hour and a half in that tent, her talking me off the ledge, about how, this isn't the end of the world. We can fix this project. And I'm like, not to fix it, but it's okay if we stop. It's okay if we start doing it. We're going to be able to do this. We have to sit to study. And then we paused it and then went through all the work. So it was not an easy decision. And I know all of you who public officials have been in rooms where this has happened, where people have made different choices, and sometimes it's really blown up, and we definitely never want it to be, we're never going to be that one. We were going to, as you said, get out while you can. Yeah. So it was good work by the team.
Well, that was just courageous to come to us and say, gee, we spent 6-9 months on it, and we decided we can't do this.
Great. Anyone else have anything? Is there any public on this particular item?
We have no speakers for this item.
I'll look to my colleagues for a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the establishment of the new capital project. And with that, we'll do a voice vote again, if that's okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, which is approved establishment of the new project. This one, 2545, the ramp infrastructure capital improvements, fiscal year 24-25 ferry division capital budget. And we have Mike Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair Abbott. Good morning. So your ferry division is coming off its busiest summer since before the COVID-19 pandemic. For our Oracle Park service, in 2024, this summer, we had an 8% ridership increase when compared to 2023. And that's actually on par with what the Giants saw for their attendance. So they saw about an 8.5% increase. We also carried 68,739 passengers to baseball games, which is our second highest year going back to 2016. So that's the second highest ever. It's important to note. And with that, we had 58 trips where we had over 500 passengers on our ferry boats going to Oracle Park. And I'll come back to that figure later on in my presentation. Staff, we recognize that we can't control the return to office workers in a financial district in San Francisco, which makes up the bulk of our ridership. But we do have the ability to attract recreational and leisure travel and target marketing and additional service to that sector. So we've made some positive changes to attract recreation and tourism ridership since the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll go through a few of those. So we incorporated a high-speed service on weekends. Historically, we've always offered Spalding class vessel service on the weekends, which is a slower service. And with that, we were able to squeeze in more runs. So a faster service, a better product, additional runs. Additionally, in Larkspur, we, as most of you are aware, have an environmental cap of 42 trips per day. And we achieved that pre-pandemic with three catamaran vessels on the weekdays. So we're operating 2 catamarans today, and we squeezed out as much as we could out of those 2 vessels. We were able to achieve 38 trips per day. So that offered additional ridership midday to try to target some of those leisure recreational riders. The largest change, notably that we made post-pandemic, was to enter into agreement with the state parks for the service to Angel Island. So we bring customers from San Francisco to Angel Island, and when we began that service, and we still do this today, we triangle our Tiburon service from San Francisco. So we bring customers from San Francisco to Tiburon, and that same vessel will then cross over and go over to Angel Island. So it came with very little OPEX to increase that service for us. In January of 2022, around the same time we started doing that service to Angel Island, we purchased the float in Tiburon that we had always been using that was owned previously by Blue and Gold Fleet. So that gave us exclusive landing rights to that float. It also gave us the ability to make improvements suitable to our needs. So when we tile that into the staff report that's in front of you and the recommendation to establish this new capital project, and I'll start with Angel Island. So right now in Angel Island, the way the ramp infrastructure is there, we're only able to operate our Spalding class vessels, of which we have 3. And this last summer, and I said I'd get back to that number of 58 trips of over 500 to Oracle Park. This last summer, we had a Spalding, the entire summer we had at least 1 Spalding in the shipyard. So now we're down to 2 Spalding vessels. If it's a baseball day, we have 1 vessel that's earmarked specifically for baseball because we're typically capable of selling over 500 passengers, and our catamarans don't carry that many. And these are tickets that are pre-sold, so our customers have pre-bought these. So now we have 1 vessel that's in the Tiburon and Angel Island route from San Francisco. If that vessel has a mechanical issue, it goes down. We don't have a spare. And we're in a very bad place in that situation where we have pre-sold tickets to this Giants ballpark, and now we have customers on an island who have no other real easy way to get off. So the first part of this project is to fabricate and install a platform, some ramp infrastructure in Angel Island that will allow us to use 2 of our catamaran vessels there. And those 2 catamarans would be the Del Norte and the Mendocino. With that, obviously, because we do that triangle, we'll also be able to use those in the Tiburon service. So in Tiburon, it's pretty self-explanatory if you look at the attachments on the staff report there that mooring our vessels is quite challenging. We're sitting just a few feet off the rock revetment there on the shoreline. The bow of the Spaldings and the way it's rigged is actually sitting over the land. So our captains have been, they've been eagerly asking us if there's something we can do there. Now that we actually own that float, we have the capability to do a little bit of work there. And it may not be a whole lot of real estate that we can provide, but we'll take any real estate off of that shoreline that we can get by making modifications to the ramp infrastructure there to moor our vessels a little bit further back. Moving on to Larkspur, We have 4 berths in Larkspur, 3 of which are suitable for passenger service, and the 4th is a lay berth. That 4th lay berth is only accessed via berth 3, which is a berth we use for passengers, and it's accessed via a floating walkway, if you will. So we use that berth typically for maintenance, and during the day, our one or two or two of our vessels that is not in operation will be berthed there typically, and that's where our maintenance staff during the day will perform most of their functions. Right now, with just through wear and tear, the infrastructure on berth 3, from driving maintenance carts, oil drums, heavy equipment down to berth 4 via berth 3 has become quite worn. So this project seeks to shore up and do some repairs to the decking on berth 3 to make it suitable again for us to bring our maintenance carts, our oil drums, and equipment down to berth 4 for maintenance. Lastly, on Sausalito, we use, rather than using the throw gangways that we have to lift up and place onto the brow of the vessel, we use a rolling gangway system that is it's easier for our deckhands to maneuver. We see less injury with this, and it also has a lot of moving parts that are subject to wear and tear. We used to have 3 of them. Today we have 2 because we've, for lack of a better word, cannibalized the spare one to make 2 functional. So, and those 2 ones that are functional, again, they're at the end of their useful life. So we seek to purchase 2 more of these rolling gangways for our Spalding class vessels that'll land on the Sausalito float. So staff recommends the establishment of this capital project to the tune of $584,610 to address these operational challenges, providing the ferry division with greater operational flexibility, maintenance capability, and safety. And with that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Michael. I'll look to my colleagues. Questions, Director Maston.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out at the bottom of page 30, it talks about attachments that weren't attached. I assume they were photographs.
Yes, there was a photograph from the staff report.
It's online.
It's online.
It's online.
Oh.
And it's in the paper version that might be in front of me. But
Yeah.
The Chair Rabbit's holding it up. You can look at what Chair Rabbit's holding up right there. You'll see at the. Okay, it tells the story quite well.
Yeah. You need to bring the boat a few feet further back.
Yeah.
When you hit the rock, stop. Any other questions from my colleagues? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this particular item?
no speakers.
We have no speakers. So again, this is to approve the establishment of a new project within the ferry division capital budget. I'll look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Again, a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously with all present. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Moving on. Item 8, status report of the 2024 strategic plan. We have Jennifer Chief.
Morning, Chair Rabbit and members of the Finance Committee. As you see, the item before you is the first status report of the 2024 strategic plan passed by the board this May. The purpose today is to present kind of our annual report out to this committee on the status of the 39 initiatives in the strategic plan. Just as a note, ongoing, the GM does do a monthly report on strategic plan initiatives as the activities become available. So this board report is set up to remind us that of the background, the criteria, and goal of the plan. It also lays out that it's an important part of our annual financial cycle, which includes projections in the annual budget. Given that this plan is relatively new, the status updates are limited, but we wanted to get this annual review kind of in the pipeline for our regular traditional report out before we start budgeting this next year. This report also reminds us that this review is an opportunity to add, delete, or modify the plan, as it's designed to be kind of a dynamic document. The strategic plan initiatives provide some prioritization and work plan for staff to study and move forward to the board for consideration, and without a necessary commitment to implementation. In attachment B, that's really the meat of the report. So I just wanted to walk through some kind of just logistics on it. You'll see in the first 4 columns, it's exactly the way the plan was approved. So nothing's been altered, maybe information, timing, or duration, fiscal impact. What we've added is for the status, we've added the final 2 columns. One column is an F for forthcoming, which is something we'll be working on in the future, and A is for active, meaning it's being actively worked on. And then after that, you'll see the status of each initiative in that column. Just as an example, if you just even look at the first page, initiative 1 is to enhance the accessibility when planning bus stops, routes, and facilities, including accessible paths. And you'll see that's an F because we are waiting for an opportunity to rise, and when those future opportunities happen, F will become an A. In initiative 2, for instance, study and implement ways to reduce district jurisdiction injury crashes yearly with the goal of reaching 0 serious injuries or fatalities. We are active in working on that, and then you will see the comment on the kind of summary status. So, of the 39 initiatives, 10 are forthcoming, 29 are active. On the forthcoming, just as a summary, some are due either we need to wait for a future opportunity, such as finding additional funding or working to collaborate with stakeholders, or they'll be put in a future staff's work plan. So I'm happy to answer questions on any particular initiatives, but we will continue to update this annually. And the monthly report for the GM will have current activities as available.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Director Cheerio, I was going to call on you before you put your hand.
That's okay. Just thank you for this.
That's all. Anyone else?
This is great.
Yeah, I think this is it's good to not just put it on that shelf, but actually keep it active and to give us an update on the implementation. So we very much appreciate it. No action required on this. Is there anything watching the public?
Speakers on this item.
Great. We'll move on then to 9, which is status report on the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Joe?
Is through the first quarter of the fiscal year, so first 3 months of the fiscal year. And if you just take a look at page 49, it's very similar to what it was last month. Things have not changed dramatically. As Dennis mentioned earlier, our transit fares are up a little bit, so that's line number 1. We are a little above budget on that. Where we are seeing the significant change, and I'll talk about it again in the finances, is other operating revenues, and that's your unrealized gains in your bonds because the interest rates are falling. So your bond portfolio has risen in value. We have to book that, but it's not actually money that gets deposited in Wells Fargo, so we can't spend it. Then the last one, 3, there are changes in operating expenses. Operating expenses are about $5 million less than we would have expected through this part of the year, and that's the work of your DGMs as we've talked about in the past. Lastly, if you look at the use of district reserves, about $21 million. It's just coincidence, but that is the amount of money that we put in the budget to transfer to the reserves. So in a sense, if this budget isn't able to be balanced, which we weren't necessarily planning for it to be, you won't be transferring money to the capital reserve that you would intend to do in a typical year. So that's the goal is in the future is to make sure that that number gets down to 0 so that you are making the big transfer to capital because we have significant capital expenses, which of course John's been talking about. And that's it for that report. If any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Joe? Seeing none. We'll take public comment kind of rolled into one, if that's okay with everyone. And Joe, you want to just continue on?
Yeah. The next report is on total traffic and patronage on the bridge and ridership. And then if you just turn to page 59 to that table, and I think Dennis mentioned this at the transportation meeting, but that was several hours ago. The bridge did stem its slide. So that, and I wouldn't even call it a slide. The summer is very difficult to predict. We could have had some better weather last year than this year. So, in July and August we're down, as you know, in bridge traffic, but September was not, and it was up by a couple of points. And that's positive. And hopefully, October will be similar to September. And then we'll see that, we're continuing our little creep upward, which is what we'd like to see, rebounding from the pandemic. Maybe it takes 10 years, but we keep doing. Then bus and ferry, are, the other thing I'd like to point out there is Dennis mentioned they're both up also, which is good. But if you look on the right-hand side of that particular page, those boxes represent the revenue that they're bringing in. And the revenue for bus and ferry is, even though the ridership's up a little bit, it's a little less than we expected. So we were a little more optimistic than we've seen so far as the revenue coming in. But minor amounts, 3% and a little over 1%. So not something to huge concern, but it's just a little bit less than we expected. And that means that, maybe we expected a little too much. And so we will adjust that going forward. And any questions on that report? The rest of it is just those charts that give you a chance to look at it in comparison to previous years.
Anyone have any questions for Joe? Seeing that, why don't you keep rolling, Joe?
Okay, page 65 is the monthly review of the financial statements. So these are your finances, operating side. I mentioned this briefly in the status report that we usually just look at that table on the first page, page 65. Behind it are all the line item budgets for the divisions and income statement. But if you look at the far right-hand side of those columns, that's the current year, and revenues are greater than expenses, which is where we want to be. It's up by about 11 million. That's the corner of that table. About 9 of that is these unrealized gains. So we're still positive even in quote unquote real money. But we're definitely look positive on paper. So that's very good. Again, it's the control of expenses is going to be the key, because we don't, even though we had a great report on our, this transportation meeting about the potential for increased ridership. That was really interesting to see. We don't have them yet. That'd be good. So any other questions on that? I'm happy to take it. Otherwise, we can go to page 75, which is capital. And usually through the first quarter, you spend about 25% of your money, and we're about 29, which not surprising, varies throughout the year. It's not something to spend too much time on. But what is interesting about it is that page, I think it's the second page of the report, or the third page, they have a table that shows that it's actually over in all 4 divisions, which is not always usually the way it works. Usually 1 or 2 projects are spending a lot, and it kind of tweaks the whole number for the division. But all 4 divisions are all spending to plan. And I think that's both execution and plan makes that happen. And that is it for me. And next is your quarterly report, which is not.
Great. And any questions for Joe?
Sorry.
Seeing none. And any public comment on the last couple of items?
We have no public comments on item 9, 10, 11A, or 11B.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Moving on then to item number 12, which is a review of the district's fiscal year 24-25 first quarterly judgment, report of judgments and settled claims. Helen.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? So today we just have 8 claims that were settled during the last quarter. I did get a question, so I just wanted to clear this up. So when I come to you for authority, like in closed session, that's not always reflective of what you see on these quarterly reports, because we get authority. Then sometimes it moves quickly or sometimes it moves slowly. Then eventually you'll see them on this list. That's my promise. But sometimes these numbers don't match what's actually happening out on the ground, boots on the ground, right? We're working on getting those results. So the 8 that you see here today, 3 of them were workers' comp claims, and 5 of them were general liability, and 4 involved property damages, and 1 involved property and bodily injury. You have any questions?
Any questions for Kelly? Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Any public comment on this particular item?
No public comment on that.
No public comment. We'll move on then to item 13, review of the Auditor Controller's fiscal year 24-25 first quarterly report on authorized budget adjustments and budget transfers under the General Manager's authority. Joe.
Yeah, thank you very much. So page 83, and then the tables following on the next page. There was only 1 very minor change to the capital budget this first quarter, so the report is almost empty.
Anyone have any questions? Any public comment? Great. We'll move on then to 13, review of the Auditor Controller's fiscal year 24-25. Joe.
Thank you. So your procurement report, actually very busy first quarter in procurement, which is not surprising. A lot of things people are waiting for, and we've been able to get a lot of work done on that. So it has pages and pages of line items afterwards, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Any public comment? Yeah. Just real quickly before we go into closed session, I do want to just report up briefly. I'm not sure, Dennis, if you listened to the BATA. I'll let you report out. Well, just to let you all know, I think that I sit on BATA, the Bay Area Toll Authority, part of the MTC, and BATA is going to go through a series of, I think, undoubtedly influenced by this board. They're going to go through a series of toll increases over the next so many years. I found it interesting that BATA, those seven state bridges that they manage, they have no capital reserve. No capital reserve, which is now the bridges apparently are all in good working order, but there's some big projects coming forward. There's some big. I'm looking over here at the what ends up being the fender of the bridge, and looking at the picture that I saw, the fender of the Bay Bridge. Not so much of a fender, and half of it was in the water. So there's some huge projects, but for sitting on that, I'm glad we're moving in this direction, and that they need to sock away those dollars like this board has done. And I know we haven't always done that, but man, just looking at the seismic project that we have forward to be able to contribute what 270 whatever billion is something that we should all be proud of, that in terms of taking that approach. And the other bridges are going to catch up and also follow suit. So I just thought I'd mention that because I found that interesting this week. With that, we're going to, before we continue to item 15, we're going to check, which is closed session. If there's no objections, want to accommodate the public to take 16 public comment now instead of after closed session. Any objections? Seeing none, is there any public comment?
We have no public comment for this committee.
All right, and then we'll move into Kim. You want to tell us why we're going to closed session?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Rabbit. At this time, the Finance Committee will go into closed session for a conference with the Council regarding existing litigation under Government Code 54956.9A. Thank you.
We're back in open session.
Kim, you want to give us our report of closed session?
Sure thing, Chair Rabbit. The Finance-Auditing Committee met in closed session as noted on the agenda and gave the lawyer appropriate guidance on us to how to deal with it. Thank you.
Great. And with that, brings us to the end of our meeting. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Hearing no opposition, we are adjourned before noon.